Hi, so my name is Naya Figueroa, and this will be running down a dream presentation from Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. So just a little bit of background information on Tom Petty. Tom Petty was born on October 30th, 1950 in Gainesville, Florida, which was a very country western sort of feel. So that's what he grew up around, and that was what he was interested in. And he looked up to Elvis, and there was a time where someone in his family was recording a movie with Elvis in it, and Tom Petty got to see him and got to just be there in person to get more experience of that kind of music. And at the age of 13, while watching the Beatles perform, Tom decided that music was going to be what he was going to do for his career. From Epics to Mudcrutch to Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. The band went from Epics, which was their first name, for their first time performing in little clubs and certain places to get $100 per week. This was their first kind of experience as a band, and eventually Epics was too corny of a name, so they changed it to Mudcrutch, which they did like, which kind of matched up to their personalities and who they were as a band. But eventually, once Denny Cordell signed Mudcrutch, a band member, Mike, left the band. And not long after Mudcrutch broke up, they all became Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. MCA versus Tom Petty. MCA acquired Shelter Records, which started the issue between Tom Petty and the record label. Tom Petty described it as he felt like they just sold them as groceries. Like they weren't nothing but a commodity to them. And if the band's contract were to be sold, the label would need to have the band's consent. So the band told MCA that they were going to have to let them go, which the label did not like that. So the publishing deal was signed under duress, which was illegal when they initially signed to the label. And being that they didn't know too much about it, they were young, they were excited, they signed a bad record deal. So basically, MCA was trying to take the band's songs from them and claim it as their own, in a sense. They didn't really care too much for the band as much. It's more so of a money issue. The band never made much money from their own records, so they ended up bankrupt. So they ended up in a position where they were told they couldn't fight a large company like that. They ended up in a position where it seemed most likely they were going to lose. Tom Petty filed for a Chapter 11 bankruptcy, which was the first time that an artist had ever did that. Lawyers saw Tom Petty as a threat. In the movie, it stated that Tom Petty took out a pocket knife and started cleaning his nails. And to them, it had this bad boy vibe, this tough kid who tried to make it seem like he was, in a sense, tougher than all of them, I guess. And the lawyers were threatened by this. In order to pay the legal bills, the band went on a short tour called the Lawsuit Tour. And so shirts, which was their merchandise, with the wording on it being YMCA. Kind of sounds like YMCA. Okay. Jimmy and the band members were very supportive. Jimmy was one of the record producers, and he would call Tom Petty a lot, basically boosting him up, letting him know that this was going to be a hit. Working on the new record during the lawsuit, while MCA versus Tom Petty was still going on, the band worked on this record for 18-hour days. They basically almost all day, all night kind of thing. they worked their hardest on this just because they wanted this to be one of the best records that they put out there. And the lawsuit was still going on, so the court implied that they had the right to seize the tapes that the band was working on, which of course made the band upset. You have this record that you're working on for so long, and this is something that you're putting your blood, sweat, and tears in, and you have the court, while all this stuff is going on, you already got your tapes being taken away in a sense, and you're working on this new record, and you have the court, not just MCA or the label, trying to take something from you. You have them trying to take the record as well. It kind of seems greedy. Trusty Bugs came up with a plan to hide the tapes from the court. The plan was okay. Trusty Bugs told them that you have to change the name on every tape box. He came up with this name, Morgan Lane, that he wrote on every tape box and took their name off, and at the end of every session, they would take the tape somewhere that Trusty didn't know, so they were hidden in a car so they wouldn't be confiscated by the court. So that when Trusty Bugs went to the court and they asked him where the tapes were, he wouldn't know where they were. So he wouldn't be lying or telling a story. Right after, this is when Damn the Torpedoes came out. The band finally received their publishing back after the court gave up on trying to fight against Tom Petty. The band also received their own label at MCA where they could set their own deal. The first record was Damn the Torpedoes, and it was based on the trouble during the time of the lawsuit. And Damn the Torpedoes was one of the best records out of all of them. And their label was Backstreet Records. And that's it.